It's here. The All Black squad has dropped, and there are some absolute bolters on this list. 6 injury covers, a brand new captain in Scott Barrett, and a few names you might not have seen coming. What does this all mean for the opening test against Argentina? We're breaking down all 42 players, the shocks and the surprises, and you're not going to want to miss this. Stick around. The full squad for the Rugby Championship has just been announced. A 36-man squad was originally going to be named, but with the number of injuries, it's more like 42. But there are some surprises, some exciting young prospects, and we'll look at all of it in this video. But jumping straight into it, in the hooker positions for the All Blacks, there's no change from what we saw in the All Black series against France. It will be Brodie McAllister, Samisoni Taukei'aho, and also Cody Taylor. There were talks about adding Asafa Omua, but he didn't play on the weekend for his provincial team. So maybe he's just a little bit away from being back. Plus, McAllister, he only has 1 cap. So clearly, for that initial selection, Razor wants to give him a little more time to grow into the jersey. We move on to the props. Ethan de Groot, Tyrell Lomax, who has a little asterisk next to his name. We'll see a lot of that in this squad. But he's under an injury cover by Tavita Mafaleo, so that's a big opportunity for that man. He had 1 game for the All Blacks 15 back in 2022, and now gets a spot in the squad. Some people might be quite surprised about the omission of George Bower, as he was training with the team. But in this case, they've given Mafaleo the nod. Lomax is expected to be back in about 4 to 5 weeks. Fletcher Newell, Ollie Norris, Pasilio Tosi, and also Tamaiti Williams. Although on paper, it's the same 6 props they had for the series against France, in reality, there are 2 injury cover players in Mafaleo and also George Bower, who is the injury cover for Mikey Williams. In the locks, it's the same 4. Scott Barrett, who will be the captain, Fabian Holland, who had an excellent July international series, playing 240 minutes against France. He was one of the busiest players on the field. His lineout skills were strong, and he seems to be a big prospect for this All Black side. Patrick Tuipulotu, who he partnered with very well in the 3rd test, and then Tupou Va'i. Now, he's named as a lock, but of course, he played number 6 throughout that series against France, and I think we'll see more of that in the Rugby Championship. Moving on to the loose forwards, it's Samapeni Finau. Now, Luke Jacobson has an asterisk. His injury replacement is actually Josh Lord, which is quite an interesting one. Clearly, they want a little more height as a locking option for the All Blacks, which could be a sign that Va'i will be playing as a loose forward. But Jacobson, he has a thigh injury and will be out for another 4 or so weeks. So, Josh Lord gets a chance with the All Blacks and could be considered for Argentina. But other than that, I think once Jacobson is back, the All Blacks will have their locking stocks sorted. Also quite unlucky, you could say, for Naitoa Akawoi. Sam Derry also just returned in a game for Canterbury in the provincial competition last week, and was maybe not on Scott Robertson's radar. But 2 players who were are Peter Lakai, who has returned from a relatively long injury for Wellington, and Simon Parker. I picked him in my All Black squad that I wanted to see for the Rugby Championship. I actually picked him for my original All Black squad, and the reason he was left out the first time, I believe, was due to injury. This time, he's back to playing fitness. He is a dangerous prospect. I mentioned the comparison between him and Liam Squire. Both are very physical players. He can play number 6, he can play number 8, and hopefully he'll get a few minutes for the All Blacks this year. Duplessis Kirifi keeps his spot in the side. Artie Savea is one of the vice-captains, and then Wallace Satiti returns from injury with no asterisk next to his name, so that's good news, meaning he's progressing well. But it also means no Christian Leowilli for the All Blacks, who is probably a bit unlucky to miss out here, especially with Luke Jacobson having an injury cover player. But Leowilli has no injury that we know of, but was originally just an apprentice for the squad. So perhaps that's how he was viewed for this squad. Moving on to the halfbacks, no changes from the July internationals, which is a bit of a surprise. Noah Hotham, Cortez Ratima, and Cam Roygard are the 3. Our 2 injury cover players, though, will be Kyle Preston and Finlay Christie. Finlay actually got injured over the weekend playing for Tasman, but he'll be fine to be the injury cover for the All Blacks. Of course, we don't know the severity of Cam Roygaard's injury. The scan will be in about 2 weeks, and then they'll know how long he'll be out for. Hopefully, not too long. I know a lot of people want to see him in the Springboks games. Noah Hotham's injury is a bit more long-term, so Kyle Preston or Christie, I'm not sure who is covering who, but there will definitely be a few minutes for one of those two in the very near future. In the first fives, it will be Beauden Barrett and Damian McKenzie. No surprise there. The midfield is exactly the same as July. Jordy Barrett is the other vice-captain. He had a very strong July International Series. Anton Lienert-Brown. He did go off injured on the weekend with a shoulder issue, which is different from his collarbone injury, but he's fine and will potentially be available against Argentina. Billy Proctor, Timosi Tavatavanawai, who actually played on the wing on the weekend in the provincial competition, and then Quinn Tupea is the last midfielder the All Blacks have. On the wings, it will be Caleb Clark, who has an injury cover player in Leroy Carter. That man, I believe, was very close to being named in the original All Black squad. He had a few quieter games at the end of the season for the Chiefs, but he actually played at number 13 for Bay of Plenty in their most recent provincial match. So, that versatility, I wonder if that's what got him the selection. Now, of course, he's only temporary cover, but I think if he can perform as he did for the Chiefs throughout Super Rugby Pacific, it won't be too long before we see Leroy Carter get a permanent spot in this All Black squad. Rieko Ione. Will Jordan. Those two are, of course, highly expected to be there. Jordan will mainly play at fullback, with maybe some cover on the right wing for the Rugby Championship. Rieko Ione, I would say they'll put him on the left wing, and that also means Civil Reese, another man who's been called back into the squad, could return to the right wing spot, because Leroy Carter can also play on the left. Ruben Love and Amoni Ngarawa are now promoted from being injury cover in July to being full members of the squad for the Rugby Championship. Last year, he was actually one of the players dropped from the squad at this exact time, so it's good news that he's made it in and hopefully will perform well in the games he plays. But that is the All Black squad, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of changes from what we saw in July, mainly due to those injuries. I don't think I've seen an All Black squad in a very long time with 6 injury cover players, but that just shows how tough this year has been for the All Blacks, and it will be a very difficult challenge for Scott Robertson when it comes to the end-of-year tour. Of course, some of these cover players might perform well, and in that case, there are some very tough decisions to be made. But let me know what you think of this All Black squad in the comments below. Their first game against Argentina is in 2 weeks' time. We will also be covering that match on the channel, as well as the squad announcement. We will also be doing a few more videos based on this squad in the near future, so be sure to check those out as well. If you appreciate this level of detail, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the Rugby Lab for more deep dives every week. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all for the next one.